All right. So here's what we got. The last key feature that we do in this class as a service is Sendmail. So we're actually kind of like way ahead of the game. So what we're going to do after this is we're going to do some scripting after this, right? Learn how to back up all of our critical files. Learn how to do some other really cool administrative stuff. We're also going to learn how to write your own crypto for your Linux box, so you can actually do passwordless logins like you're doing in 2.10. So, apt, helps if I click in the window. apt-get install sendmail. All right, so what's going to end up happening is you're going to hit this, right? And it's going to go out and it's going to find the package, ask you if you want to install it. So say yes. And it just basically goes ahead and pulls out of the archive, and then there you go, uploads its database, does its whole 9 yards. It's making a long honking crypto string. So while it's doing this, let's write down the command on the board. And that's it, right? Now notice that it's making some new directories for you, Etsy aliases and other things that we're going to kind of go through once we get this thing going. So like we did with the other files, we're actually going to go through the configuration file for all this, and then how do you make aliases and how you do the rest of it while you're there. If you have DNS set up, Sendmail will work so much nicer for you. If you don't have DNS set up, then Sendmail is going to kind of be painful. Your what? I haven't seen that before. If you get a warning that your file system may hang, then that will be interesting.
That's right, you get some extra point, right? You have not seen that before?
I have not seen that before. So that means he gets the extra point. That is correct, sir. So again, this takes a minute because Sendmail is not really small. It creates an awful lot of configuration files. Okay, once you got it, how many people are actually done and at the... Okay. So if you go into CD Etsy Mail, let's just hang out there for a minute. Everybody remember what this L means for aliases, and it's in blue? Everybody remember what the L points off to? What does that say the file is? On fourth line down, aliases. Everybody remember what the L stands for? Yep, it's like it points off to someplace else. And then once you got it all finished installed, you just go into Etsy Mail. So how many people are there? How about you guys in the back? You guys good? Bad? Ugly? Indifferent? Is it looking like a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western? Are you still waiting? Still waiting? How about you guys? Still waiting, or are you good?
No, he's good now.
Mr. Carpenter, how are you doing? Okay. So the one main file on this is the configuration file, right? So there's actually two of them. So if we go in and we nano sendmail.cf. Alright, so this file is another one of those files that's a real big pain in the butt. If you change a whole bunch of stuff in here, then your Sendmail configuration is probably going to go. It's not going to work. So what do we do with files that we're not sure if we're going to blow up or not? Uh-huh. You don't have to use, I just try to say like original, just so I know which one was which. Alright, nano sendmail CF. This is a really long honking file, and there's only a few things that we need to change. Alright. This will tell you, do not edit this file, edit only the source MC file. Right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to take a quick look at here, because that source MC file is your master control file. It's your master configuration file. Right? But what this does is this tells you everything that this thing can do. Right? You can tie this into LDAP. So that's kind of a neat thing. LDAP default spec, if you do this, it's not localhost, it's the name of your LDAP server. Right? If you're using LDAP clusters, localhost, the names of hosts for which we receive email from. Alright, who do we receive email from? My official domain name, host domain names. So this is why you need to have DNS running, right? How do we resolve host? How do we resolve email? How do we do all the other things that kind of go along with this, right? So this file is always good to have a copy of. Let's do nano sendmail.mc. Alright, so this is where it's going to look for all the major things, and this is the file that you want to go ahead and edit. Alright, so items controlled, Sendmail configuration file. Do not touch here. They mean this. Do not touch this. Alright? Because if you do something weird, then it all gets to be kind of a pain in the butt after a while in terms of trying to figure out what you changed and what you didn't change. So, daemon options for Sendmail. MTA, it's a message transport authority. Its port is SMTP, right? And its address right now, when you have it here, it's set to localhost .1 or ::1. All right, address 127.0.0.1. So right now it's just set up to use localhost. Now, here's another point in here. When the programmer says be somewhat anal in what we allow, they really mean that. We don't want to allow a whole lot of stuff, because if I can go in and do things at the command line, because remember when I was telnetted into your mail server yesterday? These are, right, the things I can do. So need mail helo, need expanded helo, need verify, restrict expand. So this basically says I'm going to lock this server down right from the get-go. You have to authenticate first. You can't just come in and say, all right, let's do some email, right? This makes it really hard to forge, right? This may not be a bad idea when you're configuring privacy flags in the MC file, right? All right. DNL, use Etsy Mail local host names. Again, a lot of this stuff is in pretty good shape in terms of what we're doing here, right? Feature access DB. All right, so this is the basis for most of how Sendmail checks everything out. Make sure that it's a good service and that it's ready to run, and that all the rest of these things happening. Greet pause feature will stop automail bots, so it makes it harder to spam, right? So 1,000 seconds, right? So that makes it harder for someone to come along and just pump hundreds of thousands of emails per second out of your system. It slows them down. It doesn't stop them, but it slows them down a lot. Because remember, their entire business model is volume. If you send out 1 billion emails, 1% of the people respond. That's 1 million people that are going to respond at $7.95 a piece. That's $79.5 million. It's not a bad day's deal. Except for those ones that say that I'm really from the FBI and you need to contact the FBI now because I love those spam emails. Right? Delay checks allows sender recipient checking. Right? Delay checks. Make sure that your sender is an authenticated sender. Right? Make sure it's really someone that can send email on the system. Right? So don't just blindly take anybody's stuff in. Make sure that it really meets those criteria. Right? If we get too many bad recipients, too many bad email addresses, then slow them down. Right? So if it's a big spam message with a whole lot of people that are getting bad recipients, slow that sender down, which is actually really kind of cool. If you're on dial-up, you can do this, right? Mail a local, include. So that's essentially what we're going to set here. And that's it. And again, we're just kind of walking through these files because there's some cool stuff we got to do here. So if we do nano aliases, right? So this is where you can set stuff in here. So these are the mail aliases. So your mailer daemon is actually called postmaster, and your postmaster is actually owned by root, right? Common alias is abuse. So abuse at rack5.highline.edu will go straight to postmaster. Postmaster is really root. So you'll see these show up in your root email account for abuse and spam. Other aliases, what you can do is if you see Dan, you can actually then turn around. Dan : is really this email address. Right? So if the email comes in for Dan to this service, it will go, oh, I send that off to rmoral@gmail.com. Right? So you can put other aliases in here, which are actually really kind of cool, especially if you have people in remote offices that may be getting stuff on a local postfix server like this. You can actually zip it off to someplace else. You'll find that there are some interesting countries that do this. Right? So instead of so the college I worked at over the summertime, everyone used Yahoo to actually do official communications in business because the local email service was so bad at the college that they just made aliases for everybody out on yahoomail.cn because Yahoo was more reliable than that. So what would end up happening is Shia, one of the people I worked with, right? Shia was actually blah at yahoo.com.cn. So anything that came in for Shuya actually came out of her yahoo.com.cn account, which was kind of freaky the first time I saw it because I wasn't sure if this was a real live person or not. But you can do those kind of relays here. And then you want to save off any extra other aliases that you want to do. Yes, sir.
I only have in my aliases file just postmaster.
Yes.
Root, and that's it. There's no comments, there's no requirements.
No. That's why if you go in there and you know you've got people you want to alias off, then you can actually go do that here. You just add them. It's not a big deal.
You don't need required aliases. It's just I've got one.
Yeah. Your required aliases are going to be postmaster and root. I remember how it reads, right? If someone sends something to the spam account, it's going to go to postmaster, and postmaster then really belongs to root. Right. So what ends up happening is in the standard off the box, off the install, is that everything that's bad about your system will get automatically sent to root. You can make other aliases if you want to send something local to a remote host. Make sense? A little bit more sense? All right. And then we want to go into sendmail.conf. Right? So this is another configuration file that kind of goes along with this. If I hit the right key. Right? So this sets up the daemon queues. Right? So it allows it to run as a listener, queue runner only. If it's listening, it will only listen for stuff that's addressed to it. If it doesn't know who you are, right? If you're not part of this, it won't accept the email, which is like really, really cool. So that's if it's a listener only. If it's a queue runner, then that means it will queue and store and forward email when it gets an opportunity to send. Right? Email is one of those really early protocols that store and forward. Stuff comes in, I store it until I can send it out to somebody else. Right? So email comes into my Gmail account, and it's stored at Gmail because I'm an authorized user of that particular account. Right? So we'll store it, and then when I read it, it will mark it as read in the system or whatever, and move it around however the rules are set. Right? So I can either have it just listen for email, have it come in, and have it go out. And that's how a lot of the anonymous relays work. Email comes in, email goes out. It's not looking for a local account. It just is dropping things as fast as they come in, pushing them right back out the door again. If you're running queue, then it's for a local account, and I'll store it until that person comes picks it up. Does it kind of make sense? So this is what defines all of that. So right now, daemon method is just static. It's just sitting out, it's listening, it's taking a look, it's going to see if there's something out there that we can actually listen to. It's going to listen on ETH0. If you have a dedicated NIC card for your email system like you could have in the cloud, right, you can actually set it to a different Ethernet port. If you have an Ethernet port that's facing the DMZ, but you want your server behind the firewall, then this is one way of addressing that. Right? You can have multiple NIC card configurations for this, which is actually really kind of cool. And again, it's just a daemon, so it's just running. There are no parameters. It's not doing any kind of stats. It's not doing anything else in terms of how this thing is working. So if you want to collect stats on how much email you get, you just turn that over to yes. Queue mode, you can run it as a standalone daemon. You can run it from cron, or you can actually do no queuing. Right? So we're just going to run it in daemon mode because I just wanted to be a standalone server. If you become part of a cluster, right, then you will want to change this around so that it makes sense for the cluster. Alright, queue interval 10 minutes. Right? So it's just basically going to hang out, it'll queue stuff up for 10 minutes and not worry about it. The only time that becomes a problem is if you have a network outage. Right? Because it will call it undeliverable after 10 minutes if it's not a local. If it calls it undeliverable, it will put it in the dead letter office. If it puts it in the dead letter office, it will never try to send it. So if you have an internet outage longer than 10 minutes, you're going to find a lot of your email doesn't get sent. Right? So you kind of maybe want to change that around to whatever your biggest outage has ever been. Do you want it to wait 24 hours of trying to deliver the email before it says, nope, can't do it, and ships it off to the dead letter office? And then you can set up queue parameters if you want. Queue mode is just going to hang out and be part of cron. Everybody know what cron is? It's an automated process. You can run it every day, every hour, every minute. Depends on what you've got cooking. Alright, so it's going to run every 20 minutes for that, which is cool. Mail stats, again, if you want mail stats, that's cool. Otherwise, it will collect them or it won't. And then these are just the miscellaneous things that kind of go along with it. Cron mail to is to route. If you want to send it to someone else, right? If you want to send it to a generic account, you can just change that mail to someone else. But it will be very chatty and will tell you a lot of stuff. Log commands. Do you want to actually log the commands that are coming in for send mail related commands like run queue, mail queue, etc. Right? You'll also see all the cron jobs, but you'll also see people telnetting in on the port and typing in hello. Right? It all depends on how much you want to sit there and watch syslog all day long. Otherwise, the answer is no, but it can be. Right? Alright, hands off, no. Change this to yes only if you want to be manually responsible for everything that has to do with SendMail. Right now, most of us are just going to leave it as no, because if the programmer is saying, in other words, the blood will be upon your hands if you set this, my ability to help you with problems will be greatly reduced. Right? Just leave it. Be good, leave it as no. But if you're having problems with your email server, someone may have gotten really, really bold, watched way too many Sendmail videos and went, sure, let's do this hands off, and say yes. You never know. Computer people get really, really brave when they sit down and go, hey. If you want to age your queues, right, what interval should you use? Twice the normal queue interval. Queuing is how long am I going to keep these files before they get moved off to the dead letter office, right? Age data, 25 minutes, hourly. It is up to you how you want to do it. If it's set to nothing, like here, it won't do it. It will stay there forever, right? Because you never know when someone's going to go on vacation for a week, and the last thing you want to do is queue off their data at the end of 25 minutes because they didn't read it. Not a way to make your boss real happy. Although they'll be going, wow, what happened to all my email? Because if you're like me, you're about 2,500 emails behind right now, and you'll never catch up for the rest of this term. Right? Hidden variables, daemon run as a specific user other than the daemon user. No, unless you have a special account just for email. Right? Daemon mail stats. And again, it's just kind of interesting when you see the programmer saying the blood will be upon your own hands in the comment in the liner notes on this one. Or usually when a computer programmer puts notes like that into their program, they really mean it. They've reached that pain point where they've fielded so many telephone calls because someone did something that they're like, I'm not going to help you if you do this. Does it kind of make sense? And that should be about it. If you want to have trusted users, if you have someone that you impeccably trust, right? These are trusted people within your system for your email system. These are people that bypass a lot of certain checks. So if you really want to trust a user, you can put them in here. Make sense? So one of the things you're going to want to check if you're walking into a brand new Sendmail installation that you've never seen before is see who they trust. Right? If there should be no one in there technically. But if there are people in there, find out why they're trusted users. Or comment them out, and if no one screams, then they didn't really need that higher level of permission. You'll find all your logs for this underneath var log, and you should see mail. Mail error and mail log. Alright. Excuse me. So these are all the things that are going on with your Sendmail. When it says get host by address name, that means DNS isn't working, right? Unable to qualify my own domain name because it's going to go back and look at your DNS settings. So if it's rack4.highline.edu, it will go, okay, that's my fully qualified name. I'm good to go here, right? If not, it will get kind of cranky and then just say, okay, we'll just use the short name of Ubuntu because that's what I named my box. Really original, right? And then if you go into your mail error, if you did something weird, right, all your errors will show up here in the error log. If something's not quite right, then this is where it will show up first. And this is really great for troubleshooting and debugging your installation. Right? Now the reason why we're getting unable to qualify my own domain name is I don't have DNS installed on this box because I've got to rebuild my VM every morning. Right? But once I install DNS and get that all set up and say instructor CIS 217 blah blah blah, then that error will go away. And then one other place to go look, you should see a brand new directory called mail. Inside of here is basically your dead letter office. If there's mail for you for root or emails that had errors or problems, they'll be in here, right? And then one other one is if you go into spool, you'll see that there's cron, mail, my queue, and all the other rest of queues go into mail. And then these are all the emails that are waiting to be sent. Alright? Because remember, email stores and forwards when it has the opportunity to. Something comes in, it stores it, and then forwards it to its end destination. So if you have emails piling up in the spool, that means there's also something going wrong with your agent that may not show up in the error logs yet. Or it could mean that someone's using your stuff as a spam relay, because they will time out and wait. So your log directories, the ones that you really want to pay attention to. I'll do with my pen. Right. So the two big things you want to watch for when you're debugging this, right, are your error log under var log mail.err, and then your var spool mail. Did I get those two backwards? Var spool mail. So var spool mails. Things will queue up if they can't go out. So it kind of makes sense on what you need to do today? You guys comfortable with this? Any questions? Yes, sir.
So if I had mail waiting, you said total 0, I had total like 16.
You have a total of 16 what?
Mail in spool mail.
Crack those puppies open. See what?
How?
Oh, just go ahead and more them or nano them or type in mail. If you want to see what you got, just type in mail, and it will bring up. It should say you have mail. Do you want to read those? Actually, I'll come and take a look here in a minute. Any other questions?
The program mail is not printing.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It should prompt you and say there's mail waiting for you. Do you want to read it, yes or no?
Well, that's
Sometimes you can get to it via mail. It all depends on what version of Ubuntu you're running on. Okay, anything else? Are we good? All right, send mail it is today then, gentlemen, ladies. It's all yours. So remember, next week, all right, you got today and tomorrow to finish up with DNS and send mail. Next week, we're going to start learning how to do a few little simple administrative command and control scripts, like backing up all the stuff that we just got done building over the last 5 weeks, so that if everything goes to Hades in a handbasket, we've got a backup of it. Sound good? Any questions? All right, that's it. Go to it, people. Have fun.